Hello there, people of the internet. Just before we start this video, I'm going to say right now that this right here is just a joke. The fact I have to say that because people take life way too seriously is insane. Shout out to Vintage Warfare for giving me this idea. So, the United States government has decided to themselves that they cannot invade Canada just because of the silly laws and treaties that are going on and all over the world. And the government's like, that's a bad idea. But you know what they did? They decided to greenlight United States civilians to go up there into Canada, take over whatever land it is they want, and they retain United States citizenship. U.S. government's like, hey, get back out there on the frontier, deal with the natives, do what you gotta do, find a place to settle, and where you settle becomes U.S. soil. Hold out there best you can, deal with whatever problems it is that you might come across, and we'll move on from there. So, what are the best firearms for this situation? This video right here is the top 5 firearms for annexing Canada. Now, as you go up there into the north, there's a bunch of things that you have to worry about. For one, what time are you going to be going up there into Canada? I'm willing to bet that basically it's always cold up there, with some very rare exceptions during probably the peak of summer times. But during the winter, you might have a little bit more difficulty with the cold in terms of your firearms capabilities, so we do want to pay attention to that. That being said, up there, never mind, I can't say that on YouTube. Up there, those Canadians are probably going to be rocking, oh, I don't know, Lee Enfields and SKS rifles, and that's probably going to be their primary firearms. So as long as we have basically anything that is better than those, then we should be pretty much okay. And here in America, we have quite a few things that are going to be better than those. So up there in Canada, it's going to be cold. They're going to be wearing some pretty heavy jackets, so you don't want the most mediocre of rounds. Remember, these are Canadians. They're not regular people. They're either going to be the nicest combatants that you've ever seen, or they are going to be the meanest war crime committing, terrifying monstrosities that you've ever come across. I guess it all really depends on the type of Canadian that you come up against. If you're assaulting a position and you hear a Canadian scream out, I don't know, something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, but I don't want you here," then you know you got a pretty good chance of taking that place over. But if you're assaulting a position and you see this Canadian, I don't know, unleash 50 Rottweilers in your direction while holding 2 MG34s that he got his hands on for some reason in this hypothetical situation, then maybe you might be dealing with a more serious threat. But bottom line is, I'd rather have more firepower than what is necessary and not need it than need more firepower than I actually have. So first things first, handguns. I would just completely get away from 9mm right now. Go right to the 45 ACP or more powerful. The power generated from, say, a 185 grain plus P hollow point from a 45 ACP is quite a bit of power, and it should be able to put down that Canadian. Should be able to put down that Canadian, assuming that you hit him with your entire magazine center mass. If you miss even a single shot, then good luck. You know, hats off to you. Have fun with that thing. I would just ignore 9mm. As a matter of fact, I would just ignore 45 ACP. Just bump yourself right up to, say, 45 Long Colt, a real man's cartridge, or maybe even 45 ACE, or not 45 ACP, 44 Magnum. That might be a better option to be able to reliably put down your average grizzled lumberjack of a Canadian. Am I allowed to say that? I feel like I'm allowed to say that. Alright, up next here in the United States, we have just a tremendous amount of AR platforms out here on the market. There's just a ton of these literally sprinkled all over the place. And although a lot of them are budget tier, it is to the point to where there's so many of these absolutely everywhere that if you end up, say, having parts breakage with one or losing one or something like that, you should be able to find the parts to be able to fix that one. But if you can't, just go down to the local redneck that's in the area with his pickup truck that is just filled to the brim with PSA built ARs and grab yourself one of those, and that should serve you pretty well. Now, these are not particularly great in the cold, but they're far from bad. As long as you don't keep them dirty and you keep them clean, I wouldn't recommend using oil because that would slow down the system. Oil turns kind of viscous like molasses whenever it gets really cold. It's just not a really good option. So you want to keep them clean because they're going to be dry, and you do definitely have some difficulties with that, but you should be able to get through at least 1,000 rounds through these things before you end up having to do any real significant maintenance to them. Since we are taking on the Canadians, we want as much power as possible, and most of us are going to be rocking a 5.56, so 55 or 62 grain projectiles. You're going to want a 20-inch barrel minimum, maybe even hunt yourself down a 24-inch barrel, so you get the maximum velocity so you can punch through those very thick wool jackets that they're going to have up there. So that is probably the two of the best firearms that you're going to be looking for. Number 3, this right here is probably going to be our best option. As a matter of fact, this might be what we would want to consider to be our primary fighting rifle. The M1 Garand in 30-06. Is there a clip in this? Let's find out. Oh, there's no clip. There's no ping. Do I have a clip anywhere laying around that I can throw into this thing? I do not see one. But anyway, the 30-06 M1 Garand, this right here showed its debut in the cold of the Battle of the Bulge, which really amplified how good it is in the cold, because the entire German military in the Second World War absolutely gave their all in the Battle of the Bulge in a desperate last attempt push, like a all-or-nothing push against Allied lines. And this right here, combined with the 1911, single-handedly stopped their advance. All the while, we were seeing one of the coldest winters in human history. So this right here up in the Canadian Arctic should have absolutely no problems running basically flawlessly. 30-06 is a little bit on the expensive side, but if you know anyone who reloads ammunition, then you'll know basically anyone who can load you M2 ball 30-06 that it will be definitely safe for your M1 Garand. Or you could go out and ask your local FUD, and he'll say that commercial ammo is going to run just fine through it because he runs commercial ammo through his M1 Garand, and it is just fine. So by that logic, with his permission, you should be able to run commercial ammo through your M1 Garand without much problem. Alright, let's see, what's another thing here that I can just BS my way through this video with? If you're up there in Canada, you're going to be finding yourself a whole lot of 303 British. From what I've been able to tell, it is literally sprinkled around everywhere, kind of like hepatitis is sprinkled around all of our big cities here in the United States, or 3030 is sprinkled around all of your elderly hunters. Bottom line, 303 British apparently is all over the place up there in Canada. So if you decide to go up there and you want to live on the frontier up in Canada and you're likely not going to be getting any more supply from the United States, maybe having a 303 British rifle with you for such occasions would be a good idea, because then you could very easily scavenge ammo. The amount of people that I hear that are currently up in Canada who see 303 all over the place, apparently it's as predominant as, say, 308 here is in the United States. Apparently you can like go to basically anywhere, any city, any store, and you can find the stuff. I don't know how accurate that is, but you're the one assaulting Canada, not me. So here's your 303 rifle. This right here would be a good frontiers gun, because you should be able to keep this thing up and running basically indefinitely. You shouldn't have any problems with finding parts, because apparently these rifles are very, very predominant up there. You shouldn't have any problems with finding ammunition. Unfortunately, I think that most of the magazines up there are 5-round. I could be wrong on that, actually. I get that I'm over here making jokes and whatnot, but I might legitimately be wrong about that one. But bottom line, you should be able to keep this thing up and going pretty much indefinitely. All right, what's a good number? What's a good number 5? I probably should have planned this out some. Do I want to pick, like, an SKS? Nah, I feel like that would be too, like, mediocre of a choice. What would be a really good choice? Ah, here we go. Number 5 on the list. Oh, you know what? No, never mind. I got a much better idea. Number 5 on the list is going to be your 5-shot bolt-action Mosin Nagant of any variable. During that winter war, or during that war in the winter where the Germans were fighting the Russians, the Germans repeatedly got rid of their standard issue Kar 98 rifles in favor for Mosin Nagant rifles. Simply because, since this right here is a Russian design and the Russians deal with cold all the time, it was designed with the ideology of running extraordinarily well in the cold. And up there in the Arctics of Canada, you might have some difficulty with, say, another bolt-action style of rifle, like maybe a Mauser or something along those lines. Things that don't really have issue with the Mosin. The Mosin seems to be able to handle cold temperatures exceptionally well. I have no idea how it's able to handle so much better than all other bolt-action designs. but it seems to function essentially flawlessly. 7.62x54R, it's a very popular cartridge. I'm not sure how popular it is up there in Canada, but as long as you are, oh, I don't know, let's say you were old enough and around to be able to have stockpiled enough spam cans of surplus 7.62x54R for dirt cheap way back in the day to where you can just, I don't know, load up your Toyota with the 15 cans that you still have left that aren't selling on Gunbroker because you're asking the same amount of money for like modern-made non-corrosive commercial ammo. And you can take that basically lifetime supply of ammo up there to Canada and settle in somewhere with this rifle that will literally never die in the cold. It's not exactly the greatest, most, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not exactly the smoothest of rifles, but boy, oh boy, can I vouch for this thing's capabilities of running in cold. And I bet that there's a lot of World War II soldiers, both Russian and German, who can also vouch for that. So there we go. That is the top 5 guns to Annex Canada. If you are going to go up there and settle in and become a frontiersman in the new frontier area of the United States. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off. Have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garand. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.